Alvarez is so poor she can't even afford to have parents. Shut up! Alvarez, she'll do anything Cindy says. I said shut up. Leave me alone. Alvarez and Cindy sitting in a tree. Fucking.
I yanked the wreath off my head, gasping for breath. 10 years. I'd been editing for nearly 10 goddamn years, and not once had I ever fallen asleep while editing a BD. It shouldn't have even been possible, unless it was one of those meditation ones they sold in the New Age stores, something that was intended to soothe the nerves. But this virtue had been anything but. Susie was skirting the line again, if there was any such thing as lines anymore. The scroller had taken delight in making his victim, the other actress, squirm as he flogged her over and over, ignoring her shouts of what must have been her safe word. And still, despite all of that, I had somehow fallen asleep. How was that possible? My senses were still a jumbled mess from the mix of lace and Sandman I'd taken the night before. I had managed to make it through the day without incident, and V had been none the wiser when I'd returned home with a fresh coat of lipstick on, but it had been an awful struggle. She had hinted at another surprise she had in store for me, but I didn't know if I would be up for it. I should have asked before taking it. There was something about Janice that told me that while she was ultimately concerned only with the almighty Eddie, she still would have told me, her newest client, the truth. Sandman would certainly knock you out. But dreams? Nightmares? Those remained out of his reach. There had to be something, anything I could do to stop these fucking nightmares. The beauties had been a saving grace, but I didn't have a source for them. I was becoming desperate for options. So desperate, in fact, that I was quite certain I could recover the deleted contact information of V's dealer off of her holo. But I would need to get my hands on it first, and it could take hours, even days, to hack into the network to recover the lost data. Even then, there was no guarantee that this dealer of hers would even talk to me. The doll chips would be an easier option. I still had a handful of them from my first failed takeover attempt to Clouds. They were already programmed to erase memories when someone was awake. Why couldn't they be reprogrammed to erase dreams while someone slept? But they were still tasked with the combat program I'd written, and it would be a bitch to figure out an all-new coding sequence, and it would still take too much time. Fuck. I had come so close to ruining everything last night. Rita had done her best to ignore me when I showed up at Lizzie's for my shift, but the friendship that had formed between us over the years had been tossed into the dumpster. I wanted to point a finger at her, just as I had done last night, and scream it was all her fault, but her words echoed in my ears.
You can't pretend you didn't want this.
How had I gotten so close to fucking her? Sure, she was stronger than I was, and easily could have forced me, but she hadn't. Had I spat in her face? Screamed at the top of my lungs for her to stop? Bit her finger when she ran it across my tongue? The only thing more pressing than the incredible weight of guilt crushing down upon me was how exhausted I was. I knew much of that was due to what I had done to myself the night before, but there was more to it than that. Something terrible was chasing me, gaining ground, and I couldn't run away from it much longer. It was time to throw in the towel, on this night at least. The pile of shards Susie had dropped off had been fairly small, and I could catch up on them tomorrow. I shut off my equipment and threw my jacket over my shoulders. It felt odd to be leaving so early when Lizzie's was still filling in. I could feel Rita's eyes boring into the back of my skull as I stepped past her and marched towards my van. I still felt queasy and could barely keep my eyes open, yet my pulse raced faster with each step I took. Why couldn't I get over this? It had been more than a month. At some point I had to tell myself they weren't coming back for more. Hey. The gruff voice startled me so much I jumped into the street. I rested a sweaty palm on my chest to keep my heart from exploding. A scraggly-looking man was leaning against a nearby alleyway. It was hard to see his features in the dark, though I could make out a long beard and several layers of torn clothes covering him. A clunky implant was attached to his temple, something that was clearly obsolete. "What the fuck? You always sneak up on people like that?" "Sorry." His voice sounded anything but. "Got any Eddies you can spare?" I curled my lips in disgust and started down the sidewalk again. "Or any snap coke?" he called out after me. "I got stuff to trade." I jerked to a halt.
Don't do it, Jude. What stuff do you think he has? You're not that desperate.
Except I was. Even if I went straight home soaked in a hot bath, treated myself to whatever I wanted from the fridge, and cozied up with a book and a warm glass of milk before bed, I still wouldn't find any rest. Those memories, nightmares, were waiting for me. Ignoring the alarm bells going off in my head, I turned and walked back toward him. "What do you got?" I asked. "Lace?" His bony hands frantically searched his jacket. Either he hadn't expected for anyone to actually take him up on a trade, or what I hoped was more likely, he was fucked up on something. That would mean he had something. "I got some cockroaches here. What else? I got a bag of sunnies. Shit, where are they? What about beauties?" I didn't expect his eyes to brighten up like they did. His hand darted toward his pants pocket, and my heart fluttered when I saw the outline of his fingers grip onto something. "I do. Got a half a bottle still for my prescription." "Prescription?" Don't take this the wrong way, but you don't look like the type they'd admit at NCMU. He chuckled, his voice echoing down the hallway. "I'm a vet. They refill me every few months." "Let's see him. And move slow. Been around Night City long enough not to trust anyone, least of all you." He didn't seem to take any offense to my remark. Instead, he pulled his hand free and presented the bottle for my inspection. Holy shit. There they were, just inches away from me. At least a couple of weeks worth of dreamless nights. For once, things were finally starting to look up. And, like always, my hopes were quickly dashed. "So, you got snap coke?" "No, I can pay you though. How much you want for the beauties?" He pulled his hand away. "Don't want your fucking Eddies. I get a stipend from the Corps and live right here. Got everything I need except the coke." "If you'll take Eddies, I can get you in touch with a dealer who I'm sure—" "Give me a blowjob." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't need to ask him to repeat what he just said on the off chance I might have misheard him. They were 3 simple words, and the intent behind them was clear. "No." I forced my voice to remain steady. "Then fuck off." He waved dismissively at me and turned away, receding back down the alley, cursing under his breath.
Walk away, Jude. Walk the fuck away right now.
But I stood my ground. How fucking hard I had ridden V to save every last Eddie we could so we could get out of NC. I'd spent so much on Sandman, 1,000 Eddies, and all I'd managed to do was dig the ditch even deeper. For fuck's sake, I had nearly cheated on her last night. I needed those pills. Jumping him might be an option, but despite his narrow frame and scrappy appearance, the odds were still good he would be packing a knife, if not an iron, and if he found out I worked at Lizzie's, I couldn't run and hide forever. The asshole would probably wait outside for me every day. How much did I want them? It was revolting to even think about. But it wasn't like I would be fucking the creep, and it would only take a few minutes if I did a good job. I lurched forward. The alarm bells had turned into sirens now and were screaming for me to stop. Wait. The word escaped my lips before I knew it. The man turned and smiled when he saw me chasing after him. He leaned back against a brick wall. "We got a trade?" he asked. "I want the beauties first." How do I know you won't run off or suck at sucking? You'll get 'em after I come. I'm a vet. I ain't gonna cheat you. You can trust me.
I'm really proud of you, Judy. Not too many addicts, especially ones who've been hooked for years like you, are able to kick it to the curb. Thanks, Alejandro. I couldn't have done it without you, though. Ah, bullshit. All I did was keep your head out of the toilet. You did the heavy lifting. Still, you didn't say one word to my abuelos about all of this. That means something. Well, I won't lie. I wanted to. The Alvarezes were always good neighbors, except for that little brat who was always throwing rocks at my house. Don't know what you're talking about. Right. Still, we're gonna miss seeing you here. You sure about this? Yeah. I'll have the whole place to myself, which will be nice. Over on Charter Street, right? Yep. Well, if you do talk to that abuelo of yours, let him know his old chum Alejandro says hi. Will do. And thanks again. For everything. Feels good to be seeing shit clearly for a change.
My eyes drifted lower and stopped at the growing bulge in his pants. It wouldn't take long, and I'd done worse for less. But even though my knees were quivering, they still refused to bend. His hand gripped the top of my shoulder and pressed down insistently. It helped drive away my indecision. I didn't see the puddle on the ground until my knees splashed in it and cold water quickly soaked through my jeans. As the ripples spread across its surface, he unzipped his fly and fished out his cock. A rank odor reached my nostrils. This just needed to be done. Right foot, left foot. That's all I needed to remember. Come on, suck my cock. His hand moved to the back of my head, urging me forward. I glanced down at my reflection, steeling myself for what I was about to do. My throat tightened at the sight of the ugly monster staring shamefully back at me. Was that what I looked like? What had I done to myself? I shook my head even as the hand pressed more firmly. Something brushed against my hair. No. I pushed myself away and jumped to my feet, ignoring his angry shouts as I sprinted away from him toward the street. Nothing would have stopped me, not even the sight of those 8 faces that had been burned into my memory. I would have gleefully rushed into their arms to get away. It was only after I caught sight of the Lizzie's sign above the entrance that I finally slowed to a brisk walk. I was breathing fire into my lungs and doing a shitty job of keeping my composure when Rita caught sight of me.
Please don't say anything to me. Just let me inside.
Judy? You alright? Just let me in. I'm really sorry about last night. I don't know. Don't want to hear it. Just let me in. I didn't care if everyone in line was gawking at us. Didn't care if they were whispering and laughing at me. She was the only thing standing between me and the bar. Rita briefly glanced at my hands, which were still shaking. Look, if you need something, I can help. Fuck, it was a tempting offer. But I didn't want anything to do with her after last night. Not because of what she had done, but because of what I was afraid I might still do. I didn't trust myself, and I had my own ways of getting fucked up without needing any help from her. Are you fucking serious? You've done enough. Let me in, or I'll call Susie and tell her you're the reason she's not making the eddy she wants. It was a toothless threat, and Rita should have known that. The bouncer had been a mainstay at Lizzie's even longer than I'd been. But whether or not she believed it didn't matter. The hurt in her eyes couldn't possibly have been faked. She yanked her arm away, allowing me to pass. I fumbled with my holo as I walked past the coat check, trying to type a message to Janice. It was riddled with spelling errors. Hell, she'd probably think I was high off my ass when she read it, but I was sure I had gotten my point across. There was always one tried and true way of getting rid of bad dreams. It wasn't healthy by any stretch, but it would work, and let me get my head on straight so I could think of a way to get my hands on some beauties without having to suck off a stranger in an alleyway. The old kitchen sink was waiting for me at the bar, and it was time to chuck it at my problems as hard as I could. Hey, Judy. Mateo, vodka tonic. In fact, make it a double. He paused for a moment to size me up. Seeing that I wasn't already shit-faced, he grabbed a glass. Yes, ma'am. He knew something was wrong. Just like he knew what the best cure for that was. get the girl a tall drink, and let her drown her problems. It was an old story, and I was ready to grab onto every one of my issues and dive in as deep as I possibly could. I didn't bother to nurse the glass Mateo brought me. It was there to be drunk, not enjoyed. But as soon as I knocked it back and handed Mateo my keys at his insistence, my hands were beginning to settle. The second glass went down almost as quickly as the first, and was nearly empty when I felt the tap on my shoulder. I didn't need to look. "Hey," I mumbled. Janice sat down next to me, eyeing me the same way she always did, the way everyone seemed to be as of late. "Surprised to get your message. You looking to become my best customer?" "Depends. You gonna hit me up with another free sample?" Janice frowned. I immediately knew I had overplayed my hand. "Don't push it. I gave you the hit of lace last night as a favor, and you bought, which is good. But no more freebies till you buy more. So, what do you want?" "Fine, whatever." I threw my glass back, emptying the last of its contents down my throat. It was helping, but I needed more. There was a sickening yet brutally honest science to blacking out in such a way where I could still function the following day. It had taken time and plenty of practice, as well as some coaching, but I'd learned. "Don't you ever drink?" I asked. "Never see you drinking here, or anywhere. Of course, I haven't seen you anywhere but here." "You're already fucked up," Janice observed coolly. "You got eddies to spend, or you just wasting my time again." What was it with this bitch and eddies? Fuck. Couldn't she just have a goddamn drink with me and loosen the fuck up? "Just saying, you gotta unwind a little every once in a while." "And I'm saying you need to get a better handle on shit. I sell customers, not tweakers." "Excuse me?" I hiccuped. "Don't be up in my shit." Janice's eyes narrowed. "I'm not up in your shit. But you're out of your fucking mind if you think I'd be selling you any lace tonight. You're fucked up. You die, and I'm out a customer." "Fuck." "Who the fuck said anything about lace? I just said I needed to get some shit. Don't project onto me if you got some problem using." I expected Janice to slam her fist against the bar, or maybe even against the side of my face. Instead, she remained quiet as Mateo checked in to see how we were doing. I ordered myself another drink. No reason not to. Once he was gone, Janice returned her attention to me. "Think it's time you understood who I am. I am a businesswoman, not your chum. I look at you and only see the eddies you got, you understand? You get too fucked up, you don't pay. You don't pay, I don't make eddies." "Wait a sec." I waved Mateo away as he set my drink down. "You're telling me you're looking out for my well-being? What are you, the patron saint of dealers?" "No lace. That's my last word on it. And you already got the Sandman from me. What else you be buying?" Well, shit. If she was actually cutting me off, and she had to be a shitty dealer to cut off a new customer for what they wanted, then that didn't leave me with many options. It would feel good to tell her to fuck off just to see her reaction. Whatever blowback Rita might incur didn't matter to me one bit, but fuck. Why did Xander have to go dark on me? "Dust," I said bitterly. Janice reached into one of her mini coat pockets. How bad was it that I already knew it wasn't the one that had the lace? She pulled out a small bag of familiar-looking flakes and casually tossed it on the bar. "Here, best shit in NC. Gives you a great float, but not that hard crash later." Where had I heard that before? Certainly not from Xander. He'd gotten defensive when I had accused him of selling subpar shit. Maybe that was the reason he'd left. "Fine. How much?" "Same as last time I told you. You don't remember, do you?" "How much?" I spat. 100. Transfer to Eddie's." I did as she asked, wanting nothing more than for her to get the fuck away from me so I could drown myself in peace and quiet. No beauties, no lace. Janice was turning out to be a real dud, not to mention a buzzkill. As soon as the eddies left my account, I snatched the bag off the bar. Janice stood. "You best take it easy. Whatever you'll be running from, this shit ain't gonna help." The music and background chatter faded away as I glared at Janice. I wanted her to know just how wrong she was as I summoned every ounce of bile and bitterness in me. Fuck you. Janice didn't reply. She only rolled her eyes and walked away. Fuck her. Stupid cunt probably had dozens, maybe even hundreds of addicts suckling on her tits. She could go get her rocks off philosophizing with one of them. Not me. Mateo. He positioned himself at the far end of the bar where he could still eavesdrop. A smile spread across his lips as he approached. What can I get you? Nachos? Jesus, did this fucker ever think about anything except food? Didn't he know food wasn't the answer to life's problems? He should, considering his profession. Just hand me a straw, will you? I took a long swig from my glass, pondering why I was even bothering with the tonic part of the drink when I noticed he hadn't budged. Instead, he was staring at me. What? Judy, you okay? You seem pretty down. Motherfucker. Now he was going to play the part of the friendly ear? Why was everyone wanting to listen all the damn time? Did they ever stop to think that I was doing my damnedest not to talk? You gonna hand me a fucking straw, or do I need to hop the goddamn bar and grab one myself? I didn't feel the least bit guilty at how Mateo's eyes widened in surprise. Maybe it was an overreaction, a remnant of anger I had thrown Janice's way, but I didn't care. Hurting poor Mateo's feelings was the least of my worries. He reached behind the bar and produced one, but rather than handing it to me, he tossed it crudely onto the bar and walked away. Such a fucking child. My hands had finally steadied and I didn't have any trouble opening the bag. There was enough in there to last me for a couple months, and I still had a trace of Xander's shit sitting in my dispenser downstairs. If I managed to stay conscious and aware, I could stumble back to my den and hit that shit too. I stared at the long trail of flakes I poured across the bar. There was no way I could, or should, do all of that in one hit. Not even in two. But 3 might be possible. I welcomed the challenge, even as I knew the thing, the monster, which continued its relentless pursuit, was on the verge of sinking its fangs into me. It was too much. And I didn't give a fuck. The first hit was every bit as good as I remembered. Roxanne. That was who had sold it up like that. I should have known. She hadn't had enough esteem to ever make it as a salesperson. I giggled and grabbed onto the bar to keep myself from floating off of it. There was hardly any aftertaste, just like before, and it soothed the burning in my throat as it went down. Between the alcohol and the dust, it was the perfect balance. If I stopped now, I would feel great for the rest of the evening. But I didn't. I wanted to feel great forever. The moment the second line of flakes shot up my nostril, I knew I was doing something wrong. Something my body didn't agree with and was urgently protesting against. An unpleasant burning began to itch behind my eyes. And even though I was holding onto the bar, at least I thought I was, the entire room was lifting off of the ground and taking me with it. Somehow, I escaped out of my body. I saw a woman named Judy Álvarez sitting at the bar. Her head was vacantly bobbing back and forth, in sync with her pulse, eyes barely open and lips parted. A few strands of hair had fallen into the empty glass next to her, though she didn't seem to care. She looked brittle, scant, ugly, beaten to shit. Her lips, weren't they mine? Curled in disgust. I didn't want to look at her anymore. She was still clutching the straw, swiping away the hands belonging to the asshole behind the bar who was trying to stop her, ignoring the metal arms reaching toward her that belonged to the purple-haired woman who reminded me too much of myself. They were all too slow to stop me, too slow to see us for what we were. Judy snorted the last of the dust, and her head suddenly jerked back unnaturally. Her eyes rolled into the back of her skull as rivulets of blood trickled freely from her nostrils. She collapsed to the floor. Figures rushed around her, but I couldn't make any of them out. It was becoming too difficult to see as everything dissolved around me like a watercolor painting under a sprinkler.
And would someone please turn off that goddamn strobe? It was almost as annoying as that persistent laughter blaring over the speakers. Why couldn't they stop? Why couldn't I? But I was stopping. Everything was slowing down, and for the first time in years, decades, I was finally in control of myself, owning myself the way my grandfather had told me I would when I was just a little girl. Cindy, Maiko, even V. They had all said similar variations of it over the years. Believe in yourself, don't doubt yourself, blah, blah, blah. None of them knew what I was. And soon, none of them ever would. I was on the precipice of an abyss, the kind I ordinarily would have been terrified of. But I wasn't afraid, as it swallowed me whole and blanketed me in darkness. I welcomed it.